Hi, my name is Jeremy Gilley. I'm the founder of Peace One Day. Today is the UN International Day for Education, the 24th of January. We've created an experience that will inform, inspire, and engage you towards impact that we can all measure. You will hear from thought leaders around the world who truly understand the important role that education will play in relation to the manifestation of a more peaceful and sustainable world. I'd like to thank all the team and all the participants, and of course, Prometric for making all of this possible. The first person we're going to hear from is the incredible Olli Pekka, the Director General of the International Baccalaureate. Enjoy the show.
Education is so profoundly important to the world that it deserves its own day. The International Day of Education reminds each of us, students, teachers, and families alike, of the vital role that quality education plays in shaping our shared future. Hello, my name is Olli-Pekka Heinonen, and I am the Director General of the International Baccalaureate, or as many people in our community call us, the IB. When the International Day of Education was proclaimed in 2018, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution recognizing the essential role of inclusive, equitable, and quality education in advancing peace and development. At the IB, we believe education itself is a fundamental force for peace. The IB's mission is explicit: to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who help to create a better and more peaceful world through education. What does this mean in practice? First, it means that understanding others is not optional. In IB programs, students study multiple languages, engage with diverse cultures, and grapple with real-world issues. This builds knowledge, but also empathy, perspective, and respect, essential capacities in an interconnected world. Second, the IB places action alongside inquiry. Through our program called Creativity, Activity, and Service, or CAS, learning is connected to meaningful engagement beyond the classroom. Students might support social inclusion, advanced environmental sustainability, or collaborate across cultures for the common good. Third, we encourage learners to question how we know what we know. This approach is essential if education is to be more than transmission of information, and instead is to become a foundation for thoughtful judgment and peaceful coexistence. Today, the IB serves nearly 2 million students in more than 6,000 schools around the world. At the same time, we are actively seeking ways to expand access to IB education so more young people in more diverse communities can benefit. In an age defined by uncertainty, fragmentation, and rapid technological change, education helps people come together across differences, even in uncertain times. The IB itself was born from this conviction. In the late 1960s, in a world still reckoning with the consequences of the Second World War, a group of internationally minded educators believed that education could help prevent future conflict by preparing young people to live together across cultures, languages, and worldviews. That's one of the reasons that I'm so pleased today to team up with Peace One Day, to shine a spotlight on the world's classrooms together. We know that education alone does not guarantee peace. But without education that builds respect, intercultural understanding, and human dignity, peace becomes far harder to sustain. So today, on the International Day of Education, let us reaffirm a simple truth. Investing in education helps create a better more peaceful future in every classroom, every school, and every community around the world. Thank you.
Gabriela Ramos, welcome to #Education Day, the UN International Day for Education.
Thanks so much for the invitation.
Gabriela Ramos, can I please ask you, could you tell us about yourself and your journey to this point?
Well, I have always been in the multilateral setting, which is not in fashion today, but I can tell you that it's an amazing place to be. I was first as in the foreign service of my country. Then I was for 20 years at the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And then I was at UNESCO for 5 years in charge of the social and human sciences. And I can tell you that for me, just seeing how much these institutions can bring people together to common understandings, to forging agreements, be it on climate, being on gender, being on artificial intelligence, and then people like me that were the secretariat of these institutions helping members to advance their agreements is just fascinating. I'm in a transition because I was a candidate from Mexico to the Director General of UNESCO. And I will put some mysterious here. I will tell you later where I will be going.
Well, I look forward to that. Can I ask you, why is the International Day of Education so important?
It's these kind of reminders that there are certain elements in human societies, in human nature, that needs to be really underscored. There are many days that remind us of many other things, but education is the most fundamental element to have inclusive, peaceful, and thriving societies. Education is the gift to the kids that receive it, but it's also the most important pillar for the building of the societies we want to have. So I feel this is very important, and Peace One Day is doing an amazing job to reminding us this very important element.
Gabriela Ramos, I am, like you and everybody else, extremely concerned about everything that's happening in the world. We saw the most violent year last year since the Second World War. How do you think young people are coping? And what role can education play in providing an opportunity for them to be able to have hope and strength in relation to everything that's going on?
Well, I feel it's very important to go one step beyond, because it's not only about having access to education. It's about having access to quality education based on values. And the problem is that we have seen during the past decades some countries moving back into going back to basics in education. You only need to know how to read. You only need to know how to do maths. And the values, they are taught at school, at your house. I don't think that can be done anymore, because we're seeing that the mental health of our children is suffering. Of course, because of the context you mentioned, because of the conflict, but also because of artificial intelligence, because of misinformation, because of the mobile telephonies, because of social networks that can be so pernicious in terms of their development. So I feel it's very important that in this day, and particularly for this context, we send a very strong message that the education needs to go back to all those values that need to be conveyed to all of us. The values of respect, the values of understanding, the values of openness, the values of really tolerance, compassion. Kailash Satyarthi, who is this Nobel Prize that is saving children from slavery, is saying, we globalize everything. Why don't we globalize compassion? And I feel that education programs need to really be focusing on that. No doubt, we need to know maths, we need to know reading, we need to know science. But it's so important that we develop this critical thinking, more humanistic kind of education that we all need, and education for peace. because if you don't raise this awareness through education, it's going to be very difficult. Going back to the question of the young generations, is now being very, very widely documented. The impact that the technologies are having on our children, the impact that these contexts that don't shield them from all the news. The news just reach them, the place where they are. It can be very violent news. It can be, and this is really causing a great problem of mental health issues in our younger generation. So I feel it's really important that we restart redefining the relationship with the technology, but that we also put more emphasis in schools in doing more art, in doing more sports, in disconnecting. I would, for once, I am one of those that think that mobile phones have nothing to do in basic education classrooms, yards. So I feel this really needs to be thought, very well thought, and this day allow us to do that kind of reflection.
Can I ask you, I mean, you've had an incredible career and your knowledge and wisdom is second to none. Can I ask you, what gives you hope? How do you find strength when you see what's happening in the world today? I'm really interested.
It's pretty straightforward. I think that I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but I think in the world there are more people that want to do good. Every time I see a mom caring for their children, no matter where, in the cities of Paris, in the streets of Paris or the streets of Morocco or the streets, when I see NGOs like yours pushing for the kind of messages we want to convey, when I see the amazing work that the UN is doing, and one word to really call on all of those that are listening to us, the UN is not just a bureaucracy that needs to be reformed. It might be, I would not deny that, but the amazing work that these institutions do to bring food to people that don't have food, to bring medicine to people that don't have medicine, I mean, it's just amazing. So I feel that we need to focus on that, Jeremy, because the problem is that we have now leaders that are divisive, that are polarizing, that are violent in many places. We wish it was only one. There are many. And therefore, they are very visible. And the media doesn't help. So we need to refocus our attention first to do what we can. Because when you do what you can, you feel at least a little bit less heavy. And second, to think that we are more. We are more in the world that want to have a peaceful world. And that helps you to really advance, not without this sense of concern that we all have, because we are all very worried, but with the sense that if we continue joining forces, we might be able to turn the tide again to the favor of a more peaceful and more harmonious world. I'm betting on that, I hope.
Gabriela Ramos, that's amazing to hear you say that. And I am completely with you. I've spent 26 years on the road working closely with the United Nations. And for me, it's the closest organization that we have to holding it together. And the men and women that I've met in, 160 countries from the United Nations are just nothing but complete heroes and inspiring. And I remember my times when Kofi Annan was at the Secretary General, and just being in that building around that energy was just unbelievable. And so, yes, I hope it gets strengthened, and I hope these divisive characters weaken, and it becomes the wonderful organization that we both know that it is. It's an incredible place, and they do amazing work in so many different ways. Our posts, our flights, feeding. I mean, so many things that I think a lot of people don't quite understand. But yes. And of course, many do. Can I ask you finally, what's going to happen to you next? What are you going to do next?
Imagine, for the very first time in many years, I have time to reflect. Where do I want to put my energy? And I have been approached by a university. I feel that the academic work is fantastic. My friends in the artificial intelligence world also want me to continue on that path. But I'm just reflecting and thinking, because that's the other part. Where do you put your assets to really contribute to those efforts that we have just described, of so many people doing so many impressive things? And so I still have not made my mind completely. That's why I cannot share with you, but you will know it. You will know it, because at the end, I also feel that when we cross paths with people like you, with so many amazing individuals contributing to improve the situation of this crazy world, we will reconnect. No doubt about it. And but I will tell you soon.
Well, I'll look forward to finding out more. But clearly those two things, I mean, of all the people who know an awful lot about AI in the world, well, it's clearly you. And in terms of education, universities, again, an area you know an awful lot about. So that doesn't surprise me, and I'll really look forward to the updates. Gabriela Ramos, thank you for participating in #Education Day, and we wish you the very best on your journey.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So nice to be with you again, and good luck to this very important message you're conveying to the world.
Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Crimmin, Senior Vice President for Global Advocacy at Prometric. And I'll tell you what, we are so excited to have really the next 10 to 15 minutes, but I would like to have a whole hour or a whole day with the two that I'm going to introduce you to as we celebrate Education Day 2026. This is our second year in sponsoring Education Day. And when you think about what that means, all of us at Prometric, really all of you as our partners and our clients all around the world, we all value that idea of lifelong learning and the idea of building the workforce of tomorrow. So when I say we are honored to be the sponsor, we are definitely beyond honored to be with you today. I joked a little bit that I wanted a lot of time with these two, but we do have a short window, but man, it is a powerful conversation. We're going to talk about the things that I know really matter to all of you, that we all know matter to you when it comes to education, continual growth, resiliency, compassion. No two better speakers could we have today than the two that we have on the screen with me. So first, for those of you that don't know Stuart Udell, he is the CEO at Prometric, and he has been guiding and leading global education companies for over 30 years, but we never put that number out there. You know, he is our Prometric inspiration. He has been the inspiration at K-12 and at Achieve 3000. And if anybody really emulates what it means to build a workforce of tomorrow, Stuart's been doing it his entire life. Joining Stuart, because I thought it would be great if we had two people together, someone just as passionate, just as committed to everything that stands for not only lifelong learning, but student success, is Dr. Jesus Jara. Dr. Jara is yes, I agree. Yes, Dr. Jara is Prometric's global K-12 leader. A lot of you know him. He's the former superintendent from the Las Vegas Clark County school system. He was also a leader in the Orange County school system. And as you get to know Dr. Jara, if this is your first time joining us or being part of his webinars or his thought leadership groups, you can tell that his heart is about success for all kids and for all teachers and for all leaders. So when we were asked to bring these two together for 10 minutes to talk about Education Day, it was hard for me to come up with some questions, but I got some. I put some really, really down and made sure that they're super organized so that it really leads to just a general conversation. Dr. Jara, we're going to start with you, if you don't mind. You know, when people hear about workforce of tomorrow, what does that mean to you? What does that mean for all learners at any age?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Debbie, and of course our CEO Stuart Udell for giving me the opportunity to be here and be part of this great day. You know, for me, when you think about you know what it is of preparing the workforce, it really aligned to our mission and our vision here at Prometric. Is how do we start really at a very young age? As a former high school principal, former school superintendent, you know, I always felt that the school system was the economic engine of a community, and every country. It really is. How do we start preparing children for the workforce of tomorrow? It takes various avenues, if you will. You think about, you know, at a fifth grade, sixth grade level, in the middle school, all the way into the high school. How do you start helping kids think about where do they want to be and multiple paths to get there? You know, think about really college and career readiness. And I think some of those, you know, people think, well, you got to have different skills to get to college and then into the workforce. And I think those skills are all the same. It's really, how do you prepare kids to be life ready, to go into the workforce? And I think we at Prometric really are partnering with school systems across the globe to really help school systems meet the needs of their students, in really opening their dreams. I always felt it was kind of an upside down funnel, because when kids are leaving K-12, it's up to their choices, to have skills that are transferable up into wherever they want to go. It's almost like you got to get into a different pathway, if you will, because then once you leave, you can then transfer into any different skills. And I think the school systems really serve an opportunity for children to really meet their families and their own goals, right? So it doesn't mean like you got to pigeonhole into a certain path. It's things that, when the research is clear that, you have multiple jobs, as you graduate and you move on into the workforce. So, for us, is really how do we partner with schools and school districts to really, make sure that children and families meet their ultimate dream.
Yeah, Stuart, I know that rings true in your heart as well.
Oh, absolutely. Look, our mission at Prometric literally is to build the workforce of tomorrow.
Yes.
For us, that means a celebration of lifelong learning, starting from K-12 to higher ed to career education and assessment and certification of skills, and ultimately to truly becoming lifelong learners. Indeed, we emulate that. We work with around the world with 180 countries with learners of all ages, starting with little kiddies all the way up to folks going back to learn new skills much later in life. And, what I love about all this, and Jesus alluded to it, is this builds the notion this ties to the notion of building blocks and stackable education through a lifelong learning experience. So, as an example, you could start by taking a nurse aid certification program with us at Prometric. Right. Do that for a little while, go back, get a little bit more education, become an LPN, maybe then finish your 4-year degree and become an RN, go to work for a little bit more, save a few more dollars, go back and get a master's in nursing, an MSN or even a PhD in that area. So this notion of like learning a little bit along the way, putting it to work, saving a few more dollars and doing it again and again, I think is really exciting. And that's really, I think, kind of the building blocks of the workforce of tomorrow.
And what an amazing opportunity to work in an organization where we are making those connections, right? You're getting those building blocks put in place. You might be going down one career path. You might want to switch. You might need more, training or certification in certain areas. And what's been so beautiful to watch with both of you and the organization and all of the associations that are joining us today and listening on Education Day is that there is no separation of school and workforce. It's like almost one pathway now where there are different ways that we're going to get there, but it's not separate. It really is connected. In fact, Stuart, I know you're really passionate about the skills that learners need. And when you start to think about, one skill or something that you feel might be super valuable, whether that be the folks that you work with in the financial industry, it could be in our health industry, it could be in our K-12 global industries. What's one skill along that journey, maybe even because it is today, that you think we really could focus more on now to help that workforce of tomorrow?
Yeah, look, as we said a moment ago, learning is not really a moment in time anymore. It's a lifelong journey or a process, and it should be, and it should be fun and exciting along the way. As we think and talk broadly, we think about the importance of durable skills, and there's a whole diversity of them. I'll just focus for a minute on grit and resilience, because if we think about grit and resilience as something that aligns to kind of a lifelong learning process, frankly, it's easy to kind of coast along with what we already know. And frankly, as we get older, it gets harder to learn new things. Maybe it's a little, it takes a little more motivation to learn new things. But, the world is factually just moving as fast as it ever has now with the advent of various new technologies, certainly artificial intelligence. So it literally takes grit or resilience to continue to build your own skills over the long term. And, let's face it, it's hard when when you maybe are finding a life partner and having kids and working
Yes.
60 hours a week. But to me, grit and resilience is always part of the formula. And as an aside, as a fun thing I do, I help kids who are applying to college with their essays and, some of the soft stuff around their applications. I always, if they don't have an idea about what to write for their primary essay, always tell them to write about grit and resilience and to tell stories
Yes.
about that. So
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
very, very firmly in that. And most of the most successful folks I know, and that doesn't mean big titles. That means, fulfilling jobs with impact, are folks who are, who just will go to the mat with grit every day.
Yeah, no, grit. You can't go wrong with that, or resiliency. And Dr. Jar, I know in your time with all of those students out in Clark County and in Orange County, hundreds and thousands of students that you've touched and you've been connected to. What skill set comes to mind for you? I know you probably have 1,000.
Well, no, but it's so funny. And this is the beauty that we're aligned and we work so well together, because I was going to say grit and resilience. And I think that is the key, right? But it's fascinating. We're thinking the same way and really thinking about what kids need to, but then you think about, well, what is the mindset? And I think you think about the mindset and the willingness to learn. And I think that is the piece when you think about, just kind of when Stuart talked about, you start with an LPN, then you then go into become an RN, the master's, the doctor. It's very simple with a technician, an automotive technician. When you think about what I used to say to kids, well, hey, you're going into, being career ready. Right. And you think about, well, when you're career ready, you start thinking about high school because you have to go to work and you have to then start thinking about. But I always said to the kids, even back my days as a school principal, it's like, I want you to be employable because you can't afford to go to college at this point, but become an automotive technician. But then I want you to become that person that owns the auto shop or the mechanic, right? Not just stay at one level. So it's a willingness to always continue learning. My father used to say, you're a learner, a lifelong learner, and the day you stop learning is the day it's the day you die, right? I mean, I hate to be that gruesome, but it's really what he used to instill in me. I pass that on to every single student, is that willingness to always continue to learn and continue to move up into the pathway, into that pipeline. I think that's Prometric, and I'm just going to say selfishly, we are the only ones that really are aligned in the entire pathway, from the little babies in kindergarten and K-12 that are developing all into the workforce. And I think that's the beauty. And that's why I'm here, being part of this wonderful organization.
Yeah, this energy and this passion on this call is not manufactured. This is all very real. And I think we believe in that mission so much. As I listen to you talk, I almost feel like some of these questions combined together. We've only got a couple more minutes left together, but what you really just described is this opportunity for access, no matter where you live or what your zip code is or what your background might have been or not have been. How are we thinking about building the workforce of tomorrow for that population of when it comes to access? And, Stuart, you mentioned it, it's how is AI and tech maybe helping us to do that?
Yeah, look, I think with the advent of modern technologies like artificial intelligence, learning has truly become an anytime, any pace, any place opportunity, right? We can take it in big chunks, small chunks, in our home, at our office, at the park bench. We can learn anywhere now, on the subway. For instance, the very best software engineer can now live anywhere in the world. And that's the truth. Can come from any background and frankly, from very varied levels of educational experience and attainment. So, we have software engineers in our own organization who maybe just got through high school, but they're, a 5x productive software engineer and 5 to 10 times better than anybody around them. So the walls have really come down. Location and background are no longer as limiting to individual learners as in any prior point in history. So it's super exciting. That's one example, but there are certainly many more.
I know. Thank you, Stuart. I know, Dr. Jerry, you've been passionate about this as well, for the opportunities that perhaps weren't there before for other children and other learners. I'm sure that echoes what Stuart just said as well.
Oh, it does. And, you think about really in a small setting, right? In a school system. And I used to always say a zip code should never determine, the kind of education you're getting. I think kids are further along today than they were when I was in school, right? So what Prometric has done for me is really expanded my view of really the world. And I think that is the beauty of where we are, where as Stuart just mentioned, you have software engineers that are living in other parts of the world that are now dealing and interacting with some of the ones here in North America. And I think the expansion of opportunities for children and adults globally is really bringing us all together and providing greater opportunities and learning opportunities for all. So I think that's the beauty of what you think about what back in when the world is flat, right? Back how many years ago was that book we were talking about, right? In K-12 we used it, and I said, now you have that is coming to reality. Today in schools globally, that is coming to reality, and the adults are really much better for companies that are pushing us to think differently. In K-12, if I can be very specific to K-12, I think educators are really using tools to provide different access and opportunities for children.
Yeah, I want to get all my kids back. I always say that I used to teach 20 years
absolutely.
ago. Because we didn't have that data. We didn't have those resources where I really could individualize, or I could make sure that someone who needed a different type of instruction was actually able to receive that. And we've come a long way in looking at what technology can do for us as a tool. I think, Stuart, you said it the other day, it's artificial intelligence and human intellect, that human interaction, what we're doing with it now. I could keep you guys all day, but I'm not supposed to. So as we wrap up, what Education Day, this is our second year that Prometric is sponsoring. Building the workforce of tomorrow is not just a mission statement. We breathe it. We live it. We have been with this, in our hearts probably for decades and decades. If someone is leaving this broadcast today and they're going off into the world, what's maybe one thing they could do, not only maybe to continue their own learning, or maybe to help someone else to continue their learning? And I'll let you each decide how you want to finish this out.
So I'll be brief because I want to make sure that Stuart closes us out as our CEO, right? So it's really what I would say is, give an opportunity to try some of these tools as an educator.
That's a great point. Yes.
Don't be afraid, because you know what? Our kids are there. Our kids are pushing. Our kids are digital natives. They are ahead of us. So as an adult, I know, look, myself, I've been in schools for over 26 years, right? It's really, you have to try some of the solutions and the tools and the opportunities with artificial intelligence, because our kids have been navigating these solutions. So I think that's the one thing that, familiarize yourself, take a course here and there, really to really get an understanding, because don't be afraid, and using some of these solutions that are out there, especially with artificial intelligence.
Pull on some of your own grit, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to do this together. We're going to do this. Stuart, how about you? What would be some of your closing words for everyone joining us today?
Yeah, I can completely agree with Jesus. Get out there and try something, even if it seems a little hard. And I think personally a great way to start specifically is to go to one of the MOOCs, like a Coursera, for instance, and take a course on vibe coding, because anyone, even if you've never written a line of code before, can learn how to become, at least to do part of a software engineer's job now through natural language prompting of the code base. So I'm actually enrolled in a Coursera course right now on vibe coding. Awesome. And it just helps me understand what the opportunities and options are out there. It's really great fun. So that would be my recommendation. And Dr. Debbie Crimmins and Dr. Jesus Jar, I just want to thank both of you before you close, because it's really a pleasure to work with such brilliant educators who've had such a vast impact on the global education landscape every day.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to thank you, Dr. Jara Stewart. Education Day is very, very dear to us, and having you join just to have this conversation, to feel the passion, to feel the energy and what we really, really believe in at Prometric. We want to always make sure that everyone knows that everyone is a lifelong learner and they can be that lifelong learner and be on that, building that workforce for tomorrow. I want to thank everyone who joined us today, all of the organizations, associations, individuals, people who are getting to know us for the first time. Thank you for really putting Education Day first in your minds and hearts. Thank you.
Emily Cherry, CEO of Bikeability Trust. Welcome to #Education Day.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure to be here talking about this incredibly important subject of education and empowerment of children.
Emily, can I ask you first, tell us about yourself and your journey to where you are today.
Yes, I always describe myself as I'm a charity sector lifer. I could not imagine being anywhere else and working in any other organisation or part of business, because charities just do the most incredible, impactful work in helping children and young people. So I've got more than 30 years experience working in some of the largest charities of the UK, particularly people will have heard of like the NSPCC and Barnardo's and Childline. And those were all very much focused on a really kind of dark and difficult world of childhood around mental health, around child neglect and child abuse and violence in the home. And after about 25 years, I said, you know what, I'd like to do something that's much more focused on hope and joy and empowerment of children. And that's when I came across to Bikeability, to do something that we can give a set of skills and opportunities to every single child to learn something that really helps to unlock a great lifetime cycling and joy of cycling and getting around in a safe and sustainable way. And that's where I came across to the Bikeability Trust to help to run that program.
Amazing. So education isn't about what happens only in a classroom. Clearly, we all know that. And you're educating out on the roads. Talk to us about exactly what Bikeability Trust and what the benefits are of it.
Yeah. So we're actually the world's largest road safety education program owned and funded by government. So we've trained more than 6 million children to date since we started, which is just a fantastic number when you think about the UK. And that's about giving them that joy and that fun and that freedom and independence of learning to cycle. So from the age of 4 years up, being able to choose active travel and cycling as a mode of transport. So literally giving children that view and independence. But this is really focused on their safety. So the education piece is really critically important. We take children out from kind of like 9 years old here in the UK onto the roads to enable them to be an independent road user. So out on the UK's roads, interacting and engaging with other traffic and learning and understanding the rules of the road. Now that's before you pass the driving test. It's before you can go on and be a motorbike user. You're out on the road acting with other traffic users. And that's why the education piece is so important. So we're giving them all of the skills by teaching them the skills, but we're empowering them by giving them feedback and showing them what good cycling looks like so that they can take their own independent decisions to choose to actively travel. And I was chatting the other day to some teenagers, you know, not only is this great for the planet, great for their health and well-being, great for their mental health, great for physical activity. It's cheaper than the bus cycling around. And also, as this young man told me in school, it's also a way to get out and see the girls. So without your parents having to embarrassingly drop you off. So it is giving this joy and independence to children in a way that other forms of travel wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I know about your work and it is amazing, and you are too. I want to say to you, at Peace One Day, we cover all sorts of topics: education, AI, climate, mental health, peace, food, etc. Because no climate action, no peace. If we're not sustainable, we can't have peace. I mean, there is a huge payoff to a more sustainable world as a consequence of what you're doing. But also, you're actually creating safer roads. You're creating safer situations, which ultimately is creating peace. Talk to us about those two aspects.
Yeah, so it's incredibly critical. I mean, we've had a bit of a period across England where we've had what's been described in the press as the war on motorists. So instead of seeing cycling and walking as great things for the planet, for mental health, for physical health, actually encouraging more cycling, encouraging cycle lanes to be built to protect cyclists from the car has been seen and positioned as the media as a war on motorists. It's not. It's a place to keep our planet friendly, to reduce carbon emissions and to improve safety. You know, the number one reason that someone is killed and seriously injured on the UK's roads is because the driver or rider failed to look. So they fail to engage with their fellow road user and fail to see someone coming. This is what we teach at Bikeability. We teach people to observe, to look, to engage, to literally turn around so that you can see the cars coming behind you. You know what drivers are doing because you understand their priorities, and to act with peace and harmony on the road so that as humans, we travel together and we can travel in harmony. Whether you're a cyclist, a pedestrian, a lorry driver or a van driver, we all share that road peacefully so that we can get to our destination safely.
How important is a day of education? I mean, you know about a lot of days. You've been a supporter of many of the days. Why is it so important that we communicate and raise awareness, inform, inspire, engage people around these issues?
Sure, the easiest thing for politicians and others to say is, we'll focus on the next generation. You know, we're going to empower the next generation. It's much harder to put the time, the resources and the effort into doing this well. And that's why the Day of Education is so critically important, because it's that incredible, powerful reminder that it's not just a throwaway comment for politicians to say, actually investing the time in the next generation, giving them access to the right information so that they've got trusted sources of information and advice, trusted organisations who are there to guide them and to support them, but critically to show how young people can make those choices and decisions themselves if they've got access to that right information. And that's building education will really unlock the world for the future.
Fantastic, Emily. Can I finally ask you, if people want to find out more about Bikeability Trust, or they'd like their children to go on the course or follow you on social media, let us know how we might be to help and how we can find out more.
Yes, you can simply just go to the bikeability.org.uk website and you can find out all about our information. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, do you know what, I'm an adult and Bikeability is for children? No, it's not. It's for everyone, for adults too. We've got adult training courses. And if you just want to know and learn how to cycle, you can come and find a course that suits you. Or you can, if you're listening in from another country, you can look at our programs, our model, and we'd love to work with countries around the world to really embed safe cycling for everyone around the world.
Emily Cherry, CEO of Bikeability Trust. Thank you so much for participating in #Education Day.
You're welcome, Jeremy Gillett.
Hello, I'm Corey Glickman, and I'd like to talk to you about the future of education for Education Day 2026. First, I'd like to talk about the shift from content to capability. The world is no longer rewarding people for what they know. It rewards for what they can do with what they know. Secondly, education is moving from memorization to mastery, problem solving, systems thinking, creativity, and collaboration. Lifelong learning is becoming the default, not the exception. Next, let's talk about AI. AI is a partner. It's not a replacement. AI is transforming learning from a one-size-fits-all model to a personalized, adaptive experience. Students gain real-time feedback, tailored pathways, and the ability to learn at their own pace. Educators shift from information delivery to coaching, mentoring, and designing meaningful learning experiences. Third, let's talk about skills for a planet in transformation. Climate, energy, and sustainability literacy are becoming core competencies for every learner. The next generation must be prepared to design, build, and lead in a net zero world. Education systems are embedding real-world challenges from urban resilience to circular economy into their curricula. Now let's talk about learning beyond the classroom. The boundary between school, community, and industry is dissolving. Students learn through apprenticeships, micro-credentials, and project-based experiences with real stakeholders. Universities and employers are co-creating pathways that connect learning directly to opportunity. Let's talk about equity through technology. Digital tools are expanding access to high-quality learning regardless of geography or background. The future of education must ensure that technology closes gaps rather than widening them. Inclusion, accessibility, and affordability are becoming design principles, not afterthoughts. Human skills become more valuable and not less. As automation accelerates, empathy, ethics, leadership, and cultural intelligence become differentiators. Education must cultivate not just skilled workers, but responsible citizens and thoughtful learners and leaders. The future belongs to those who can integrate technology with humanity. And lastly, there's a new model of institutional leadership. Schools and universities are evolving into innovation hubs that convene government, industry, and communities. The most successful institutions will be those that embrace agility, experimentation, and cross-sector collaboration. Education is no longer a pipeline. It is an ecosystem.
I'm so excited today to get to interview Dr. Debbie Crimmins. And let me share a little bit about Dr. Debbie. Dr. Debbie Crimmins is the Senior Vice President of Global Client Advocacy at Prometric, and she is also the Vice Chair of the Education Division for the Association of Test Publishers, ATP. She is a recognized leader in education to career innovation. She brings over 25 years of experience that bridges the gap between the classroom and global industry, having served as an associate superintendent and a district leader before holding senior executive roles at Edmentum, Scholastic, and HMH. At Prometric, which I get to work with Debbie, I'm so excited, she leads advocacy efforts across 180 countries, focusing on strategic collaborations that enhance equity, access, and employability through modern credentialing and talent development. That's a great introduction, I hope, to someone that's just amazing and just the nicest person that you could know as well. So thank you, Debbie, for being here.
Ruth, that is amazing. Ruth, if only my family said those things about me all the time.
Well, maybe we'll have them watch on Saturday then.
They will be. Thank you so much.
So I'm gonna dive right in. I know we don't have a lot of time, and so I'm going to ask some questions. So we're here to interview for the Education Peace Day, and we're super excited to be a part of this day, and just recognizing that education around the world and all of the great things that education does to really change the trajectory of our lives of our students, whether they're young or whether they're old, we're all lifelong learners. So I'm going to start out. My first question, Dr. Crimmins, is on Education Day, when we say workforce of tomorrow, what does it mean for learners at every age?
Well, if there was ever like the greatest question to start with, that's it. And that, it's always just beginning. How's that? And as you think about all the things you ever want to do, I remember, Ruth, being at the Raggedy Ann Blackboard, teaching my brother. And, some people will go, what's a blackboard? Now where we are in life. But it was like, there was a calling to teach, right? There was a calling to, I don't know if it was to educate or to bring people together to learn. And by the way, my brother didn't always want to participate in that. But when you think about building the workforce of tomorrow, I think everyone has these dreams. They have these aspirations. They have these ideas. And, what's really wonderful about Education Day and Prometric coming together is that those dreams, those things that get you excited, those things that you want to do now really can become a reality. There are pathways now, right? As we go through school and with your background as well, you go down these pathways. And as we start to think about what that means to be a lifelong learner, it starts with a dream and an aspiration. And it's so great that we have a day, really, we have a lifetime of celebrating what those opportunities and those pieces might be. I cannot imagine not having had teachers in my life, right? Or having people in my life who really encouraged me. And I think what we're really thinking about right now is how do we make sure that everybody has someone in their lives that can help them to get to be that workforce of tomorrow participant that we want them to be.
Follow up with that. How do we move from a culture of one-time graduation to one of continuous certification? How do we move from that?
Wow, I think you and I could go back and talk about education in general that has to make some shifts, right? I remember my beginning days of being a teacher in a high school and having a syllabi and curriculum that was given to me, yes, and working specifically with the students that were in my classroom and not always really understanding, was I teaching the content and curriculum that they needed to go out into the workforce, into their lives, wherever that pathway was going to lead them, and use it, do something with it, right? I remember, Ruth, so vividly the pressure of sometimes standardized assessment and making sure that we taught the standards and that the kids mastered the standards and that they needed that to move on to the next grade level. And then, there was always this question of applicability, like what happened with learning about, Beowulf, and I love Beowulf, and learning about, the literature, the content, whatever it was that we were teaching. And where was that getting them in the future to be on that pathway to that career or job? What I think is really exciting right now, and what I know Prometric is championing, and what I know Education Day is promoting, the idea of lifelong learning is not just now a motto. It's the idea that you can get credentials, you can get specific certifications and skills that are going to get you to where you're going. You may be going into college. That's great. You may be going into a career, or you may be going into a certain field. And I think the world has evolved now that we're beyond getting just the grades and the standards and the diploma. Yes. It's really about what credentials and specialties can now get for you as you go into that workforce.
Well, we always say you can learn the stuff, you can teach the stuff, but it's those soft, durable skills, which we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Oh my gosh! Isn't that the truth?
That's going to be the case. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the truth? If you think about those durable skills, I don't know if you would agree. I don't remember being taught as an educator going into education how to teach those, or that they were important, or how to assess them.
Right.
And it's almost like I want to go back and get all my students back and reteach them, yes, because we need that, right? We need it.
Yes, we taught the stuff. We definitely taught the stuff.
We did teach the stuff.
Skills. Yes. Okay, my next question. What's one skill or mindset we should help every learner build now? And how can schools, communities, and employers make it accessible?
Oh my gosh, Ruth, I hear this from my 23-year-old daughter, who I can't help but always bring into everything I do.
Of course.
Because I've watched her journey, right? We're very loving on our families. And I've watched her journey as she's gone through, a school, a college, and into her first career. I have the pleasure at Prometric of working with over 400 clients really globally as they look at how to build their workforce and really look at what credentials and building their cohorts, how people are coming into the financial industry, for example, or the medical industry or the automotive industry. And there's one piece that I think resonates over and over and over again. And I have this really, I'll call it a geeky conversation with Nikki Etchell, our chief assessment officer, because she's also very passionate about this. And it's the durable skill of, I want to say collaboration, but that sounds kind of soft, how to work together, how to be part of a team, be part of a group, be part of a small cohort and problem solve and get to the best project or to get to the best resolution or the best strategic application. I don't know that everyone has ever been really taught how to do that. My daughter, Samantha, as she's gone into her career, she works in a group and they have projects that are due all the time. And that idea of how do you manage that, conflict resolution, communication, what do you do when you all don't agree or when there's not clarity? I think that as a skill, if we were to concentrate on that, that would help everybody, not only in the professional world, probably in the global world. How do you, right? Exactly. I don't want to get all political.
No, I know what you're saying. Yes, exactly. Well, it's about being able to influence others. And, when we talk about collaboration, doesn't mean we always have to agree within that collaboration, but how do we influence people within that team to understand what we believe and maybe shift their mindset to our mindset and be able, and if they don't agree, it's okay to disagree. And exactly what you just said, we need that in the world more so today.
More than ever.
More than ever.
More than ever.
How do we measure or ensure that education opens doors everywhere so a person's location or background doesn't limit the path to a good job?
Oh, wow. I know you had the pleasure yesterday of working with Dr. Arsenio Romero, the former education superintendent for the state of New Mexico. This is a conversation that Arsenio and I have a lot, as well as Dr. Jesus Jara, former sup from Clark County, in that wherever you live and wherever you have access to what is physically there for you, whether that be the school systems, the teachers, the certification, you shouldn't ever be limited by that, especially in today's age with technology and the opportunity to provide, access to so many ways of learning. You may want to become the next coder, right? And go into coding, and maybe you don't have that at your school or you don't have that at your fingertips. And I think what we're really seeing now is that technology, especially whether that be a virtual learning, AI, all of the pieces that are opening up doors, you're not limited by your zip code. You're not limited where you are. There's access. And I love that for everyone around the globe. We see so many people at Prometric that are going through certification and credentialization to work in other countries and to move into different professions. And I think that's a real plus where I think technology was once kind of maybe a little bit mysterious to people. I think it's opening doors now. And I think it's giving opportunity to folks that may not have had that before, not only because physically where they've lived or what they've had access to, but because they just didn't have the support systems in place that we have now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about technology and AI. That's the topic. That's the topic out there. My question for you, Dr. Crimmins, is where can technology, especially AI, make learning and assessment faster and fairer? And where must humans stay at the center?
Well, first of all, humans should stay at the center always. I think that is back in the day. I referenced this a little bit in my last answer, but there was this fear that was technology going to replace us, and I don't think technology can ever replace educators and leaders and the people who are charged with making sure that education is happening. But what tech can do now, and we kind of joked about this in the beginning, is I want to get all my kids back. I do, because I think we were always asked to individualize instruction. We were always asked, I had 42 students in a classroom. I had to make sure that I was meeting every single learner's pathway, their needs, working with them one-on-one, understanding where some were ready to go ahead and some had gaps, and I was trying to always help. We all were, right? Again, we weren't taught necessarily how to do that. That's not a fault of the college systems. It's just we didn't have the technology back then. You mentioned my 25 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, how old am I? But 25 years ago, we didn't have data at our fingertips. We didn't have these pathways where we could really look at who really needed help with what skill and how could I truly supplement that, kind of bring that instruction right there to that individual with certain materials. That's where I think tech and AI today can be an amazing partner, a true partner with educators. It's not something that sits over there. It's a tool that's helping us to do what we always wanted to do. And that's to reach all students, to make sure that every single person was having more of that year's growth in 1 year's time, or, making up for gaps that they had. I wish that I have the tools that I see now back then. I wish I could go back with them.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, now that we can see that AI handles a lot of the grading and the admin and things that educators typically spend a lot of their hours on. If they don't have to do that and AI is able to help them with some of those things, how do you think they should reallocate their time to better serve our students?
Well, if you're not having to do all of that, it's giving you time back to teach. And I think if you have that data, and again, I can only reference the narratives that I know and the stories that I feel like I have lived still. I wanted so much to have really meaningful small group instruction. I wanted so much to make sure that I was, even back in that day, helping kids learn things that would help them in the workforce of tomorrow. The truth of the matter is that it's just really hard to do if you don't have that type of data. But I think all of a sudden now, if you have this data back, teachers are able to pull together the right small group and have that instructional time and have it be real beneficial and targeted. Teachers are able to come together in professional learning communities to talk about their grade levels or their content or their curriculum, and really talk about how to, specialize in the instruction they're going to have. It's giving us time back to do quality teaching, and even giving us, I see so much in the work that we're doing at Prometric, time back to leaders to do quality leading, to understand where their schools are, where their teachers are, where their students are, and how to really bring that full circle.
Absolutely. So
we could talk forever, Ruth.
I know.
We could just talk forever.
Just talk. Well, and I have 100 other questions on these, but I know our time is limited. So I'm going to ask you one last question.
Okay.
What is one practical action that our viewers here can take this month, right away almost, to grow their skills or help someone else do the same?
Oh, that's such a great ending question too, Ruth, and such a meaningful one. And this, I hope, sounds as sincere as I'm going to say it, is that we're all still able to learn. Wherever you are in your career journey, you might just be beginning, you might be on different pathways that you're choosing. I think taking one action from Education Day and the work that we do at Prometric that we're so proud of is that ability to learn, that ability to reach is never ending. And, going out, and maybe it's a new skill, maybe it's a new hobby, maybe it's, trying something that you never thought was even possible. When we're all learning and growing, I think it's contagious. I think there's a need that we all owe to each other to realize that it's always just beginning. And I know at Prometric, we really believe in that. We really believe that we are always going to be building that workforce of tomorrow. So Ruth, I thank you so much for this today.
So
I wish I could.
Yes, I wish I could
spend the whole day with you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Again, this is Dr. Debbie Crimmins, and she's amazing. And we do have other webinars. We do interview her on various things. And now I've got a whole bunch of ideas of other webinars we can do. I'm very excited. So thank you, everybody. And
thank you so much, Ruth. We couldn't do our work at Prometric without you. I hope you know that.
Maya, welcome to #Education Day.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy.
Well, it's always amazing to see you. Listen, firstly, I want to ask you, for the audience watching, can you tell us about yourself and your journey to where you are today?
I started Autism Siblings and Friends Network when I was 12 years old. I have a younger brother whose name is Raul, who was diagnosed with autism. And, the main aim of my organization is to more or less include the siblings of those with autism and our friends, hence the name Autism Siblings and Friends Network, to be the change makers and leaders of tomorrow. So we created the first ever Autism Fun Days, Christmas parties, and so on. And, we provide workshop for the siblings, and we do so much here in Trinidad and Tobago because we are the next generation and the future is today.
So talk to us a little bit about autism for those who might not have somebody in their family who has it. Talk to us a little bit more about it.
So autism is a spectrum and it ranges from level 1 to 3. So there's low functioning, middle, and then high functioning. So it all depends on one individual person on the spectrum. So every person that you meet with autism would not be alike. They may not have the same likes. They won't. So for example, one may be really excellent at maths while another may be incredibly amazing at sports. So every person that you meet on the spectrum is unique and they all have their different needs. So whilst one may struggle with socializing, another may struggle with noise. So it's really a spectrum. And I would really advise checking it out, learning more, and really interacting with a person with autism, because once you've met one person with autism, that's just one person. You could meet so many more and learn so much from them.
So this is the International Day of Education, 24th January, the UN International Day of Education. How is it for a person with autism to go into the system, and what sort of things are being done to be able to support them?
In my country, it's really terrible. So, when Raul was growing up, it was a real struggle to find a school for him. Up to today, he hasn't been in a mainstream school. It's always been private therapy, private schools, and so on. And it's still a struggle in today's society. A lot of the times, the schools turn down the kids because they're not equipped. They have no teachers to handle them. Another thing as well that is an issue here is that they're not placing teaching aids to help these students when they go into that mainstream school. So it's a lot of bullying, it's a lot of sensory overload happening, and there's so much more that we could do for them here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, it's wonderful that you're educating on the Day of Education people around this incredibly important issue. Why is a day like this so important? I mean, you've been a great supporter of climate and peace and of course now Education Day. Why are these days so important, do you think?
I think today is really important because education is really critical to our survival. Because of it, we learn how to grow, to adapt, to make changes, and so on. And I think that it really shapes us into who we are as we grow older. And I think it's really important that we include those with autism as well. The only way to do that is when we ourselves become more educated about them and how we can make the world more inclusive for them. And I think it's really important because we need to embrace their diversity and understand them in a way that we could also help them to lead more fulfilling lives in society.
So last year was the most violent year since the Second World War. How do you think young people are coping at the moment?
I think it's really difficult for young people because, for example, I went to secondary school, primary school, and university here in Trinidad and Tobago as opposed to my brother. And I feel like school does not teach us exactly what we need to, go out there and learn to survive with, for example, things like financial literacy and so on. We learn. So in Trinidad and Tobago, it's basically a cramming system where, you have to learn X, Y, and Z about a certain topic. And you basically just use that information to pass exams. As opposed to, it's when you graduate from school, it doesn't really help you in any sort of way. And I think that as young people, we really need adults and we need support systems and we need everything possible to teach us how to be, good, flourishing adults in society when we do graduate. And I think that that's a real setback, not just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but in many other countries as well. You could see it happening when you meet so many young people. You would ask so many I would assume it would be basic questions about your country or so on, and you struggle to answer it because you don't know. It's not something that you learned in school, or it's not something that someone would have told you, hey, do you know this happened? It's really important that we learn all those other extra things as well.
So listen, Peace One Day, we've been doing education materials, 20 years, travelled the world, speaking with young people. And in fact, this year, we're going to put a new vehicle together so that we can reach more teachers and more young people throughout the year and beyond. What do you want to see happen in the world of education? And how important is it if we're to see things differently in the future, i.e. protecting each other and protecting our planet?
Yeah, exactly. So you see, with education, we would be able, if we were taught those things in school as well, right? We would be able to do so much more, because I remember, like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Greta Thunberg's story. Her teacher was actually showing her a video, and that's when she decided to make a change and she skipped school to go protest. You know, imagine being impacted by something like a issue, a social issue like that in school, and imagine like feeling that drive and change to go and do something about it. How far and how much we can all contribute to society. I think it's really important that, you know, we really continue to educate ourselves about things that are not just in the books and academics, but outside of that as well, like real world issues and stuff. In Trinidad and Tobago, I don't think that there's much focus on it. And I think that there should be, because these are issues that my generation and the future generations are growing up to encounter, and we won't have any idea how to solve those issues if you're not exposed to them now.
So, Maya, if people wanted to find out more about your organisation and support, how can they?
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. It's supported as TNT. You know, I would definitely recommend checking us out, checking out the incredible work that I've been doing. You'd see my journey over the years. This year, my organization will turn 11 years old. I feel old, even though I'm pretty much young, because I'll be 23 in 2 months. But, you know, just follow our work, follow our story. We really appreciate it every time you share a flyer. You know, that means awareness. And we have our upcoming Autism 5K run and fun walk happening in April this year, and this will be our 3rd year doing it. And the first year we started off with 500 people, and we've grown to it being 1,000 persons, and we're aiming for that 1,000 again this year. So I'm super excited for that. So, you know, just check us out, check out our amazing work.
So, you know, what gives you hope? I mean, where do you get your inspiration from? What keeps you going when it, you know, at times it's very difficult to run an organization like you're running, and you know, 11 years, you know, congratulations on that. But what keeps you going when it gets difficult?
Raul, because I live with it, you know, it's a lived experience to me. It's not just like an issue that, you know, one day you could just turn off and be like, oh, I'm not feeling this today. He is my main inspiration. You know, we've grown up pretty close over the years. We're just 1 year apart. So when I would go to school and he would be at home, you know, it would always be like a question. Why is he at home? Why can't he go to school with me? So he's my main inspiration. Until he gets the better that he deserves, I will not stop, and no one can stop me.
Maya, thank you so much for participating in #Education Day, and we wish you the very best on your incredible journey.
I am very pleased to get to introduce our interviewee, Kevin Baird. Kevin Baird is a global leader in workforce development and accelerated human performance with over 2 decades of experience bridging the gap between education and career opportunity. He currently serves as the Chief Experience Officer at Prometric and Chairman of the Global Center for College and Career Readiness. Kevin specializes in designing scalable systems that transform assessment and credentialing into platforms for global mobility and economic growth. As an accomplished author and international keynote speaker, he has advised ministries of education and corporate boards across 5 continents on aligning curriculum design and policy with the needs of a rapidly evolving global economy. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here today for Education Day.
That makes me sound way too old. And I thought it was every continent but Antarctica. The only 5. It was great to see you here. It's good to see you. It's good to see you.
Knowing you need to update your bio. So I'm sure it is all the continents. So I'm just going to dive right in with some questions for our viewers. The first question I have for you, Kevin, is, you know, this is Education Day. So on Education Day, when we say workforce of tomorrow, what does that mean for learners at every age?
If we think about no matter what age you are, if you are in school, if you are in college or university, or you're in the workforce. The workforce of tomorrow means that I need to be a continuous learner. What I need to do in my job tomorrow is going to be different. The World Economic Forum is happening in Davos right now. Their research shows that somewhere between 40 and 60% of all core skills are going to have to shift over the next couple of years. So if I'm not improving my skills, if I am not continuously learning or creating curriculum for learners so that they have tomorrow in the crosshairs of what they are trying to achieve, we are literally falling behind.
What changes then are needed to move from a culture of one-time graduation to one of continuous certification?
I think if you are in the private sector or nonprofit, if you're an employer, you need to expect that your folks in your organization are continuously learning. You need to incent that. You need to provide them time for that. You need to expect that. Maybe you get a raise if you go out and demonstrate that you have a skill. If you are inside of the education enterprise and you're creating curriculum, you actually want to have a skills-based curriculum. So it isn't just that you're getting a grade. You should be able to certify the skills that you are building, and those skills should be stackable. And if we continue to move to the idea that I am going to demonstrate that I am ready to do a thing, not just because I sat in a classroom for a certain number of hours, I might have been napping, but instead that I'm going to have an understanding of those skills that go into that ability. And I demonstrate that I have those skills. That's really what ongoing certification is. In the entirety of the world, because things are moving so quickly, and also because of the rise of the machine workforce, where I might need different skills because machines can do some things. Everything is moving from the idea that I have a diploma or I have a degree, which could be very general, to there's a specific set of skills, and I have demonstrated that I have those skills.
So, Kevin, what is one or two of those skills that every learner should build now?
So, with the rise of machine intelligence and the rise of the machine workforce, human skills become absolutely imperative. So skills like resilience or confidence or empathy, communication skills. You have a variety of human skills that you can both expect and you can measure. As well, in terms of technical skills, the ability to ask questions and to use different kinds of AI tools to know how they work. Because no matter what your job is, some kind of machine intelligence is going to touch your job.
So how do we ensure that education opens doors everywhere so a person's zip code or their background doesn't limit their path to a good job?
One, we need to make sure that we are sharing out the very best curriculum and standards everywhere. In my work at Prometric, we talk with governments and they are looking for multilateral alignments. They're concerned that their curricula isn't aligned to the various markets where their graduates are going to work. So you need to have the best curriculum everywhere. You need to have alignments to what those standards look like everywhere. And then you need to have access to technology. So for instance, in our work with deep learning AI, and Dr. Andrew Ng's organization, he's from Stanford. He created Coursera. We're taking out content as well as then an AI Olympiad across the continent of Africa, because we want to make sure that everyone in Africa has access to some of the best curriculum and then also can demonstrate that they did well on that curriculum via an Olympiad.
Thank you. Where can technology, and you mentioned especially AI, where can it make learning and assessment faster and fairer, and where must humans stay at the center?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that we are a phone-based species today. The vast majority of the world interacts with technology on a phone. So anything that you're building, anything you're interacting with, and anything you're engaging with, it truly needs to be phone-based. And the variety of things today are free, but I would say they need to be accessible and free. And then we need to consider that migration is not just migration, someone, say, moving from Kenya over to Saudi, but it is also telemigration. And we actually need to create the pipelines, the highways for telemigration to allow talent to do that and to make it acceptable for them to do that. And that really, truly allows my talent anywhere to raise their hand, get certified, and then to contribute to those economies. The last thing is, if you consider how you get paid or how you pay for services, one of the critical barriers today, it's kind of an unseen national border, is the free flow of money. And so we have to make sure that people can get paid no matter where they're sitting, how they're working, et cetera. And that is actually not easy today, that there are significant barriers there. If you consider the introduction of AI tools, especially in schools or for educators, we need to consider how much time educators are spending and how they're using those tools and how they're learning to improve their own skills so they can maybe teach how those tools are going to be used, or so they can be more effective as teachers. What I would say is that it isn't about a certain amount of time. It is actually integration. Have you made the use of an AI chatbot or an AI analysis something that you regularly do? Because that is going to be the expectation of your students when they get into the workforce. So for instance, I use my OpenAI every day. Personally, I have something called KDOS, Kevin's Daily Operating System. And every single day, I have it ask me the same 7 questions. And that's because I want to get grounded in my day about what I think I need to do. So creating routines and using it every day is absolutely critical. And then secondly, the single most important skill is not my ability to take files and put them in, Cuisinart to analyze. It is learning the questions to ask. Remember, you can do 2 things here. You can train AI chatbots to ask you questions, but the vast majority of interaction with artificial intelligence tools is to get information back. Well, the answers I find are directly related to the questions I ask. So if I can ask better questions, I'm going to get better answers. And the limitation or the differentiation between someone who kind of uses AI to someone who really is an expert at using those tools is, does that person who is an expert, they know how to ask really good questions and how to ask nested questions. Question 1, question 2, question 3.
Yes. Hey, my last question for you, Kevin. What's one practical action viewers can take this month to grow their skills or help someone else do the same?
One practical action that everyone can take to grow their skills, to become a continuous learner for the workforce of tomorrow, I think is pretty simple. Download an AI tool. Most of them are free. You can get a paid account, but you don't have to. And you literally use it every day and ask it questions and figure out how to ask better questions. And every time you're going to go Google a thing, you're going to go search for a thing. Sometimes it's just you wonder about a thing. Gosh, I wonder how they did that. Ask the AI chatbot. And what you will do is you will build your ability to have an ongoing conversation with machine intelligence. Because today there are 3 critical shifts: the rise of machine intelligence, the rise of the machine workforce, and those are happening inside of a world where the vast majority of our youth are in the global south. Our job, if I'm not working with a robot, is to make sure that I can interact with machine intelligence and help myself be even smarter and more effective.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's always a joy to hear you and hear what you have to say. You're one of the smartest people I know. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Shannon, welcome to #Education Day.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Shannon, the first thing I want to ask you is, could you tell us about yourself and your incredible journey?
Oh, of course. So my name's Shannon. I am the founder of Exciting Teacher, a former primary school teacher who retrained in children's mental health. And the reason for that was because I was teaching year 1, so 5-year-olds throughout the point of 2020, 2021. And that was right at the start of my teaching career. And actually it was incredibly challenging throughout the pandemic. And so I felt the need to want to help children more so than just teaching kind of the curriculum. I wanted to support them with their mental health and wellbeing that bit more. So I retrained in mental health. I still work part-time for the NHS in children's mental health. So I am in schools doing therapeutic interventions with children part-time. And then Exciting Teacher came from a place of wanting to translate. I learned a lot during my mental health training that I kind of felt that teachers should know too, because teachers aren't trained in these things. And so it was very much, how can I give this knowledge that I've learned along the way back to teachers to keep more teachers in teaching and being able to support children more closely with their emotions, as was been highlighted every single day and continues to be highlighted every single day as a really high level of need for those children. So Exciting Teacher bridges that gap. So it brings resources and classroom strategies and teacher training kind of tools to teachers to support children. And that's what the mission is. So very much on that mission of supporting children's mental health and wellbeing as much as possible through those practical approaches.
So hashtag Education Day, 24 January. The year started in an extraordinary way. Last year was the most violent year in 80 years since the end of the Second World War. How is it for young people, do you think, at this point? I mean, we're talking about mental health. I mean, it's scary for adults. How do you think it is for young people?
Yeah, I think it is significant for young people. I think that, we are looking at, it's like the history books have been rewritten every single day. So there's so much stuff happening in the world every single day that we will think about in the future, and it will be talked about in history, which I don't think necessarily happened as much or to this extent previously. And I think for our young people, that brings a lot of uncertainty. It brings a lot of things that are outside of our control. And like you say, as for adults, that's unnerving, it's worrying, it's anxious kind of things that are happening. And for our young people, that's, it's beyond their control. It's things that are abstract. It's things that they necessarily don't understand. They're hearing things on the news. They're seeing things on social media. They are hearing about things at school that friends talk about that they don't fully understand. We as adults aren't understanding it. So it's very much, it is unnerving and it's unsettling. And I think that for us, the approach we have to take with children is, with sensitivity in mind and their age appropriateness, but, talking through some of these things that they may be seeing or hearing about so that they do understand to some extent what, is happening within an age appropriate guideline, because otherwise it's just that thought of the unknown. It's all the what ifs. It's all of the, what if, what does the future lie? What's going to happen next? This has just happened in my country or in my town. What's going to be coming up next for me? And that, it is scary. And our young people just need that reassurance. They need that validation that what they're feeling is okay to feel that way. We feel it too. We need to be normalising how we as adults are feeling for children as well, so that they can kind of pick up on that and know it's okay to feel that way. But yeah, it is terrifying.
Shannon, do you think enough's being done, and what can be done? I mean, at Peace One Day, we've been doing education resources for over 20 years, and this year we're going to scale the amount of resources that we can put in front of young people and teachers to hopefully equip them with the appropriate tools to take on the great challenges that we face today that are very different to how they were only a few years ago. How do you see it evolving? What can we do? What role is education going to play in the manifestation of a more peaceful and sustainable world?
We need to focus on, and this is very much the Exciting Teacher mission, is driven by the need to focus on, and this is my focus for 2026, is to teach emotions first. So teach feelings first is kind of the thing that I think we need to focus on. I think that there is a lot of resources out there, and similarly Exciting Teacher, similar to Peace One Day, is all around that, giving as much resources and as much tools and strategies as possible to support. But if we aren't focusing on prioritising teaching emotions for children so that they can, spot, notice, name, and then navigate those emotions, then we are missing kind of the ballpark. I think a lot of if we're ever going to navigate the world in which we are currently faced with, and who knows what the future will hold, we need children to be able to talk about how they're feeling, why they might be feeling that way, and then to be able to solve that feeling in a way that is manageable for them, which is a lot of what us as grown-ups are lacking as well. These are skills that we've had to just learn along the way. And I don't think children should be, we're in 2026. Why should they just have to learn that along the way like we all did, when in actual fact they could be explicitly taught those skills? So, and I think that will provide a lot more hope and support for the future. I think if children have got these kind of their lifelong skills that last a lifetime, I think that then they're going to be more resilient. They're going to be more kind of able to put themselves out there in the world and to maybe challenge and push back on some of these things that might be happening in their world futures. Who knows what that looks like? And so that's kind of that's how we give that hope back. The hope is in giving those children the skills to be resilient enough to be able to cope with the future. Because right now, I think, we're struggling as adults, but we weren't ever really taught those skills. And so we're missing an opportunity to do that. And I think that those resources, and it is about talking about the everyday, the real world stuff, they can be taught. There is obviously a focus, especially here in England, on curriculum demand and, covering certain aspects of curriculum, maths, English, all that kind of stuff. But actually, if children aren't emotionally regulated, they're not able to talk about their emotions, they don't have those emotional literacy skills, then we're missing the ballpark for a more hopeful future for those children, because they're going to need them to be able to get through the world ahead of us.
The International Day of Education. Why is a day like this so important?
It's important because I think, it's important to recognise that not all children have access to such an education. And so being able to acknowledge and support where we can and talk about these important issues for children, again, in the context of the UK, they are very much subject, and around the world, to a curriculum and an education system that is now very old. And so it's not reflecting of the modern day. It's not currently talking about current issues and current topics these children are navigating. It's talking about the way that I was taught at school, the way that you were taught at school. It's all the same. Before us, it's all, there's children have been taught exactly the same as what they were back then, and taught in a way that is for that as well. So I think on a day like today, we need to be talking about how do we equip children for the future? How do we give children the skills to navigate jobs that don't even exist? Yet they're not. I'm doing a job that didn't exist when I was at school. And so how do we give children those skills to be able to navigate the world in a way that we can't predict what's going to happen? So it's much more around giving children those more rounded skills. And again, acknowledging the fact that, we can only do so much, but by continuously talking about this, continuously vocalising these kind of the focus on emotional literacy, emotional regulation, they're skills that every child around the world should have and can have. It just takes people to kind of pursue it and to teach those children those kind of, lifelong learning kind of opportunities.
Yeah, incredible, Shannon. Well, I mean, it's wonderful to collaborate with Exciting Teacher, and I think you're completely right. We need to give the appropriate tools to young people for them to be the driving force behind the vision of a united and sustainable world that reflect the challenges that they're facing now, today, and in the future as a consequence of the evolution of us. So I completely agree with you, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future. For those who want to find out more about your incredible work, and congratulations on all of the wonderful awards you've been getting and the success that you're having. So if people want to find out more and be able to work with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so in order to find out what Exciting Teacher is doing, simply search Exciting Teacher on any social media platform across Google. You're going to come across the website and the hub of resources. So Exciting Teacher has, again, 950 resources and growing every single day to that collection. And every single resource links back to children's mental health, children's wellbeing, or children's emotional literacy development. So that's kind of where they're pitched at. They are there for educators, but they're also there for parents, anyone that's working with children and wants to support their mental health. And they are accessible in a way as much, we have free resources, we also have paid resources. So there's something for everybody to support every child out there. And Exciting Teacher is also, we're about to publish some books. I thought I'd share the one here, why not? So the Scribbles crew have a book series coming out all around different emotions. There's one for 6 emotions. There's confident, there's calm, there's happy, there's sad, there's worried, and there's angry. And they are now available for pre-order. So that's something that's very, very exciting. And again, it does link just back to that mission of reaching as many children as we possibly can and giving the grown-ups that support the children those skills to be able to support the children in the best way possible. So find us across all the socials and say hello. I always talk about it's just me. I'm a one-man band. It's just me on my own, spinning all the plates. But there is a lovely community behind Exciting Teacher as well that's really pursuing this mission in classrooms all around the world. And so, come say hello.
Shannon, the very best of luck with your incredible work. And thank you for joining us for #Education Day.
Thank you.
It's a great honour to now introduce Sir Michael Caine, who performed the poem If by Rudyard Kipling, an incredible piece of literature that is truly inspirational for a very special day.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor look too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life for broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are done, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 40 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. The Kipling poem is one of my favorites since I was a boy at school. My father read it to me once, and I think it to me as a little boy, it summed up what a man should be. And later on, when I became an actor, there were a couple of lines in there that affected me. One was, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, it's a very good thing for an actor, because an actor's life doesn't consist of any medium things. Everything is either a hit or absolute disaster. So there was that one. And then there is another line, which is, if you can hear the words you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, well, that's the press as far as actors are concerned, because you're always seeing something and you go, wait a minute, I never said that. And so it stayed with me all my life, right until this very day. You know, the war, for a start, took my dad away for 6 years. I never forgave it for that. You know, war disrupts everything. I was evacuated on my own and ill-treated and all that sort. Everything went wrong, you know. Peace, things go right. I was a soldier when I was 19. I spent my 19th year in Korea as a Fusilier infantryman. And so I know what I'm talking about when I talk about war. And it's the most disgusting thing that you could ever think of. And I've also noticed with every single war has been declared by men who are too old to go. And it's made me suspicious.
Hi everyone, my name is Navin Amarasuriya. I'm a Singaporean that lives in Japan, and I work for an American mental health nonprofit called the Contentment Foundation. We serve schools around the world with scientifically evidenced practices of well-being, and it allows me to pay back my teachers who have loved me into being. The whole idea of training the heart and mind is not a new one. It has existed all throughout time in various philosophies, theologies, traditions. But we live in a moment of technology where we have neuroscience, psychology, and all of the latest tools help us understand how we can train and reprogram the default behavior of the mind. This work has led me to explore parts of myself that I never thought possible, and I'm so grateful to be able to bring it to teachers and students all around the world. As we know, there are many existential challenges facing our planet right now, whether it's climate change, political polarization, income inequality, the threat of war. They all exist, but underneath that, there's the relationship with oneself and each other. So by leaning into this seed of cultivating practices that help us see the world in a different way, by leaning into empathy and compassion, inquiry, we're able to then meet this world, as difficult as it is, with a little bit more peace, a little bit more spaciousness. So I would love for all of you to join us on this journey. Please visit our website at contentment.org if you're curious. And I'd also love to invite you to take a journey to explore the world within, whether it be through wisdom practices or science. The journey within is vast, the landscape is huge, and it's an amazing journey. So I wish you all the best and happy travels. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Heli Valgaveli from Estonia, and I'm 18 years old, which means for the most of my life, I have been told what my future will look like. Climate crisis, job atomization, uncertainty. But rarely has anyone asked me, nor have I thought about what I hope that the future would look like. And that's why a project in my country, Estonia, inspired me. It's called Let's Dream Together, and it gathered more than 13,000 dreams from people of all age groups, children, students, grandparents, asking them what they imagine that our world will look like by the year 2050. But we did not just dream, we analyzed them, and we found patterns. And since more than 70% of all dreamers were aged 7 to 26, I decided to focus on what changes would the Estonian youth like to see in our educational system. And let me tell you, we as a collective know what needs to be changed. I mean, isn't it only fair that us who will be living in this future the longest, whose children will be living in this future, have the loudest voice in shaping it? And luckily, this year UNESCO is calling on us to recognize the power of youth in co-creating education. But it has to start somewhere, and you can't be an agent of change for a future you've never imagined. And after this project, I believe it starts with dreaming. Because first, dreams can reveal what truly matters to us, the learners, what are our hopes, our dreams, our concerns. Secondly, dreams inspire by giving young people permission to think bigger than our circumstances and allowing us to see that we are capable of creating change. And third, dreams engage, because when you're working toward the future you helped imagine, you're no longer a passive recipient of somebody else's vision. You're a co-creator of your own. So, we in Estonia proved that dreaming together can create a national vision, and it can create a better educational system. And I believe this should be done everywhere in the world. So I ask you, let us dream our future into being.
John Switzer, welcome to #Education Day.
Thank you, Jeremy.
John, could you tell us about yourself and your journey?
Well, it's almost accidental. I grew up in northern Canada, in northern Ontario, small town, and my parents owned a tourist resort. And so I didn't really travel very much as a child, but we had a lot of people coming and going from all over the world staying at our resort. And I think that was a seed that was planted about living abroad and what it must be like to be in another country. But yeah, you learn about others and their journey, and you realize that your own experience is just one experience. And so that, as an adult after university, I decided to go to become an international school teacher. I first went to Kuwait in the mid-90s. So the first Gulf War had happened. We didn't know the second one was coming, but I stayed for 6 years in Kuwait. And that sort of opened my eyes up to international schools and the International Baccalaureate in particular, because I became a teacher and then coordinator of the program at the school in Kuwait. And we were the only school in the country that was offering this program, and was there during September 11th in 2001, when I believe you were at the UN explaining the inaugural Day of Peace on September 21st. And we, from that moment, I think my wife and I decided we would like to have a career in international education. So from there, we moved to South Korea. Again, the only international school in the country that did it. I was assistant principal, assistant to the head of school, and IB coordinator, and it just sort of became a journey. And I got to meet fascinating people, and mostly young people who really do want to change the world and need some tools to do that. From there, I joined the International Baccalaureate in the Singapore office and stayed there for 4 years, helping to educate countries in the region about international education and why the IB and this kind of curriculum is so important in international schools in particular to deliver it. And then from there, Switzerland for 8 years, and now for the last 7 years, I've had the privilege of being the upper school principal here at Frankfurt International School, one of the leading international schools in the world, and one of the founders of the whole IB program back in the 60s. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey. A lot of it is serendipitous. I didn't know that one thing would lead to another, but I'm so lucky and grateful that this has been my career and the chance to meet thousands of international students along the way.
It is amazing, John, what you've achieved. I mean, you're running one of the most successful international schools in the world. And it was incredible to have the Director General, of course, open up Education Day today from the International Baccalaureate movement. Before we get on to that, so I'd love you to really tell us about the vision and the mission of IB. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about Frankfurt International School.
Back in the 60s, like many schools after the Second World War, there was a movement towards peace and maybe setting up structures. And so a number of companies were moving back to Europe, or moving to Europe, multinational companies in other parts of the world as well. And so in the early 60s, there were a group of people and parents wanted to set up a school here in Frankfurt. They, at that time, there was a question of whether they wanted their kids to be part of a German public system or create something different. So the parents got together, and actually some German parents as well, and created this school, and they called it the Frankfurt International School. So this is 1961. And from that, it grew from a small school with some parents who were in the younger years and were, planning on going back to the United States or other countries for their, quote, high school experience. And at the same time, the International Baccalaureate was just getting founded. It was more of an examination syndicate at the time in the early 60s. And FIS said, hey, we'll be one of those pilot schools. So there was International School of Geneva, United Nations School in New York, a school in Tehran, actually a girls' school in Iran, another school in Lebanon. And so these schools just sort of piloted this program of assessments for 18-year-olds. And that education syndicate became the International Baccalaureate in the late 60s, and we were one of those founding schools. So these families that were part of Frankfurt International School then their children could go through this, if you like, international school, international experience, and graduate with their credential that would allow them to go back to their home countries, wherever their home country was. And so that was the genesis of both the IB and Frankfurt International School. So the two are actually very synonymous and closely linked. So, and obviously from then, now there are thousands of schools around the world that that do the IB. But we were the first one in Germany and one of the first ones on the planet. So yeah, the idea of the story behind FIS, I mean, it grew from that small family grouping of just 5 or 6 families to now we have over 1,800 students from 60 different nationalities come through the gates every morning to experience this wonderful place. And you, Jeremy, have been at the school for our Changemaker conference, and you also spoke at our graduation a few years ago. So you know this place firsthand.
Peace is kind of almost central to the work that you do. Talk to us a little bit about that, because it's special and it's important at this particular time in history.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess first of all, I would say peace isn't the absence of war. It's how we disagree, how we listen to each other, and the empathy that we show for each other. How do we live with those differences? And I think international schools are excellent for creating an environment where somebody sitting beside you could be from an entirely different country with an entirely different value set, but yet we have to coexist. So how do you listen to somebody else who has a completely different perspective? So yeah, I think for me, that is all what peace is about. And it's, as I said, it's not the absence of something like conflict. It's actually living with conflict and understanding others whose differences can also be right. And I think it takes that proximity to get beside somebody who has a different value set. It's empathy, it's dialogue, and it's listening to each other. And those critical thinking skills, we all watch the news and we all see what's coming in on our feeds, and social media, I think, unfortunately, can allow these algorithms to point in one direction or the other. It's very polarized. And I think there's a lot of nuance in that. And there's a danger. Adichie said this in her TED Talk about the danger of a single story, the need to have many, many different perspectives on any one issue. And I think international schools do a great job of trying to foster the if you like, the complexity of many of these things that are going on in the world and helping our young people understand that. So that's, I think, what peace is, and how we have to foster that critical thinking and those skills needed more than ever, I think, in the planet.
John, why is the International Day of Education today, 24 January, so important?
Well, I would say what UNESCO has tried to create in this idea of an International Education Day is that, education is, number one, a long-term investment. And maybe once a year, we should stop and take stock of what that investment looks like, maybe where we are, we need to go. I think we are always living with complexity. We have to respect other differences, and we need to take responsibility beyond our borders. And so international education is not just looking at your own context and understanding your own, but also looking abroad and what is happening in other countries. And again, we see that in our news feeds. Our young people are probably more engaged with global issues than ever before. And I think they need to do that with like I said, a critical lens. So I think an International Education Day is that time to stop and take stock of what's going on in the world, and perhaps what do we need to do to learn more so we can contribute more to make the world a better place.
Can I ask you, I know as a dad, that my daughter's concerned about what's going on, like every young person is at the moment. And I'm wondering, deep down, I think to myself, how are they coping across the world as they look at the actions of adults and the way in which we're behaving? Most violent year last year since the Second World War. Probably maybe worse this year. We hope not, but not a good start. As a headmaster, how are you coping with what must be going on for young people?
It's a hard thing, right? And I should say, this is a huge school with a huge team, and no one person is able to do everything. So, there are principals at every division, teachers at every division, parents at every division. And I think it does take a team of adults who care very deeply about the future of their children. My children went through this school. So I think it's really important that we foster that dialogue and try and bring people together for the sense of understanding, right? And so in one example, it could be just just, what's happening in Iran right now, and writing to those families, writing to the teachers who are from Iran at our school, checking in on them, making sure they're okay, making sure their family's okay. Because these are issues that affect all of us in different ways. Some of us, if you like, are insiders to the conflicts. We're from the country. We've lived in the country. We have family still in the country. And others of us are outsiders, right? We maybe have visited the country, or we have friends from there, but we don't actually know what it feels like to be in that particular situation. So I think the insider-outsider bit is important. So we need to make sure that we are allowed, as I said, to put people close together in proximity, to have an open and honest and trusting dialogue. And I think adults can foster that and facilitate that, but I think our young people can as well. And we shouldn't shy away from these conflicts. We should discuss them in a way where we can do it with empathy and really seek first to understand. Because too often, as I said, if we just rely on our social media and news feeds without that critical lens, we go down rabbit holes of one perspective, and we all have biases, right? So how do we understand what our biases are? And in the older years of this school, the Theory of Knowledge course that the IB offers, I think really helps young people to open up about that and to understand their biases and confront their biases and realize the other perspectives for most discussions and conversations. So I think the young people today are looking for those conversations and looking for opportunities to engage in those conversations with their peers, with their classmates, and also with the adults to help facilitate those discussions.
Amazing, John. You know how important education is to Peace One Day. From the very beginning, we were visiting schools and have done ever since in probably 160 countries, and have resources that are being used by thousands of teachers in probably 140 countries so far. So, this is a really important thing. And what's wonderful when I hear you talk, and I know you and I know your school, and the IB is an incredible movement, that you're really creating an opportunity for young people to express themselves on these issues in a very structured, sensitive and careful, loving way. And I commend you for that. It really is inspirational. So finally, how can people find out more about FIS and perhaps IB?
I mean, obviously, our school on our social media, etc. So FIS.edu is the website for our school. You can read all about us. We have all kinds of videos. You can see what the facility looks like. You can also hear from young people and hear from teachers about the experience. What is it like? What does it feel like? Because, I really think, what Maya Angelou said, people can say what they wish. They can even do different things, but it's what you remember in young people and what you remember at a place like this is how you feel. So the website's done a really good job of trying to give you that feeling. So FIS.edu is where you'd find that. And then for the IB, it's www.ibo.org. And so the International Baccalaureate website can show you about the IB and what the mission is, and also where international schools around the world that offer one of the 4 IB programs. So you can learn a little bit about that and get a map of IB world schools around the world. And I think that's just, again, if you're interested in learning more about international education and the IB movement or a particular school and how they have embedded international mindedness and international education in a particular school, then check out those two websites.
John, thank you so much for participating in #Education Day. It was wonderful. Thanks, mate.
You're very welcome. I think, what you've created with Peace One Day is convincing the world leaders, and you've done it, that we need to take a day to pause and to think about peace. And I think what education does is give up a framework to how we can engage with those peacemaking activities. So education and Peace One Day, I think, are very much linked.
I completely agree with you. And actually this year we'll create a new vehicle for Peace One Day education. And I'll look forward to working with you and talking to you about that. Good luck, John, on your journey.
Thanks, Jeremy.
So we've come to the end of #Education Day. A huge thank you to the team, all of the participants, and of course Prometric, our sponsor. We hope you've been informed, inspired, and engaged. To end the show, we're going to hear the new Peace One Day anthem by Peace One Day Ambassador Dave Stewart. and Daryl Hall. If you want more information about Peace One Day, please visit peaceoneday.org. And of course, please use our free resources for teachers, parents, and guardians. See you next time.
I can barely see through the smoke anymore. Is it there on the screen like so many times before? The noise is so loud I can barely hear. It was far away, now it's really near, and all I hear is people say, can we have peace one day? One day. All I hear is people say, can we have peace one day? But just one day. There's a clearing down there, you can see it from the sky. That's not a good place for children to hide. What a decision to have to decide when there's buildings collapsing with families inside, and all I